Well, I'm so glad you found us here. More with Moeller on the 13 News Now Plus app. We're taking a deeper dive into the weather. My name is Craig Moeller, and I'm a meteorologist at 13 News Now. That's WVEC in Norfolk, Virginia. And I'm a meteorologist, have been one. Gosh, it's been decades now. And I'll tell you, we've worked here in Norfolk for quite a while, but I've also worked other parts of the country, like Salt Lake City. I did mountain meteorology. I did severe weather coverage in the Midwest, and we're going to talk about weather all around the country. Of course, there's always some talk about what's happening right here in the Mid-Atlantic as well. We're going to check in on the tropics. As for the topics today for November 1st, hopefully you had a great Halloween. Here's what we are going to do. We're going to start off with a wrap-up of October around Hampton Roads. We've got November by the numbers, what we typically see, and we're going to look ahead all across the country. So like I said, this is a streaming weather event for folks not only in Hampton Roads, but across the country and around the world. If you have interest in the weather and what's happening in the tropics, we're going to talk about the fact activity is picking up. Here we are into the last month of the tropical hurricane season for the Atlantic side, and we are seeing more activity. 3 areas we're watching. I'll talk about that. One of those likely to develop and could become patty in the next few days. We also have something else that's going to be a lot of fun to dive back into. This has been picking up a lot of interest on some of our other platforms here at 13 News Now. I did an interview with a specialist from NASA, and we talked about this zombie star. If you haven't heard about it, there's going to be a star that appears in our sky that hasn't been visible with the naked eye for about 80 years. It's coming back to life. We're going to talk about that, how long it's going to last, and how you may be able to see it where you are as we go in the coming days, weeks, or months. There's some mystery around this zombie star, but it is going to come back. So these are the topics we're talking about today. I'll have some more forecast information. For those of you that are watching from Hampton Roads, the high in Norfolk was 82 degrees. That was for yesterday, Halloween, and that turned out to be the 3rd warmest Halloween on record for Norfolk. So very warm. You can see 15 degrees above the average, 67. And so far for the year, we are at 2 inches above normal. Now, I bring that up because we're going to talk about just how dry October has been. I said we'd take a kind of a wrap up of the month. We had temperatures that were a little bit below and then a little bit above average, kind of went back and forth through the month of October here. Nothing really dramatic one way or another. We had that one really warm stretch, that 4th week of October, and then it cooled down for the weekend. The past couple of days have been warm. We're warm again today, but there's another push of cool air. So, you know, you find this kind of up and down throughout the month. Not a big deal there. When you take a look at the precipitation, this is where it has been a bigger deal. As I mentioned, Hampton Roads, the Norfolk area, is about 2 inches above average for the year. We had record rainfall for the month of March here in Hampton Roads, and we had one of the wetter months of July as well. It's been the past few months that have been so dry, and you can see since the 2nd of October, it has been dry at Norfolk International. This is really significant. So we've got this stretch of dry weather coming. October turned out to be the 3rd driest October on record for Norfolk. Now, as we look ahead to November, this is November by the numbers, and there's so much going on in this graphic. I want to go ahead and throw it over to my colleague, Hunter Forst. He's a meteorologist, and he's got a look at these November numbers.
As we head into November, we finally start to feel the chill in the air. Our average high for November 1st is right around 67 degrees, but by the end of the month, our average is in the upper 50s. The hottest temperature ever recorded here in Hampton Roads during the month of November was 86 degrees, and the coldest, 17. Now, set way back in 1891, we actually saw 6.7 inches of snow here in Hampton Roads, though normally here in November, we average about 0 inches of snow every November. So I wouldn't expect any snow this time around, but you never know. Also, you want to take notice to the sunsets. Our sunset November 1st is right about 6:11 p.m. But this upcoming weekend, we have the end of daylight saving time, and our sun sets at the end of the month at 4:48 p.m. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm not looking forward to the earlier sunsets, but I am looking forward to a little bit of crisp in the air. For 13 News Now, I'm meteorologist Hunter Forrest.
All right, Hunter. So I appreciate that. He said he's looking forward to some more crispness in the air. You can see those temperatures by the end of the month topping out in the upper 50s. So what does November look like? And this is a look forward from the Climate Prediction Center. And you can see as we take a look at the national picture, along the mid-Atlantic, it's going to be maybe just a bit drier than normal. Not really a shock. It's been extremely dry. New York, Philadelphia, down here through Norfolk, as I mentioned. But you look at the Midwest, and this area from Oklahoma, Kansas, back through central Missouri, up into Illinois, including Chicago, southern parts of Wisconsin, up around Milwaukee, back through Iowa. These areas very likely to be wetter than normal. So it looks like this is where the unsettled weather will be through much of the month of November. And this is a 30-day outlook. Also maybe a bit drier down along the Gulf Coast here, not too far from New Orleans here, southern Louisiana. Also a little bit wetter up in the Pacific Northwest. Now that's the precip outlook. How about those temperatures? Remember, it should be transitioning to cooler weather. Well, if you're in the eastern half of the country, again, the mid-Atlantic expecting above average temperatures. When you look at all the highs and lows, we'll have some ups and downs from time to time. But when you look at all of those temperatures and you average them out, it is likely that we will see above average temperatures for most of the eastern half of the country, and very likely we see it from the Great Lakes through the eastern seaboard and down across the southeast. Out west, equal chances, warm or cold, maybe close to average. We'll see. Nothing too dramatic when we take a look at those 30-day outlook signals. So generally warmer to the east and pretty close to average out to the west. That's our November outlook as we go out 30 days. All right, we talked about the recent dry weather here in the mid-Atlantic. I'm going to show you the drought monitor. We talked about this yesterday. If you caught More with Moeller yesterday, this had just been released at 8:30 yesterday morning. For Hampton Roads, we are in moderate drought. That extends up through the eastern shore, the northern neck, middle peninsula, the peninsula, and down through northeast North Carolina and the Outer Banks. We've been dry for a while now, and we do have officially moderate drought. Areas shaded in the yellow out towards I-95, most of Virginia and North Carolina, just abnormally dry right now. You can see some other areas are under more extreme to exceptional drought. Let's take this map full, and I want to talk a little bit more about these areas that have been really hit by the drought. So you take a look here, your eyes may be drawn to these darker shades here back across Ohio and West Virginia. These areas, again, it has not been extreme, but exceptional drought for those spots. So that's what we're looking at right there. As you can see, parts of southwest Missouri, Springfield, Joplin, back down into northeast parts of Oklahoma, northern and northwestern parts of Arkansas. Areas right along the Red River, you can see parts of Oklahoma and Texas, and then West Texas, some areas there under extreme drought. So extreme to exceptional drought. We've also seen some of those areas back up across western Montana, eastern Wyoming. So a lot of dry weather for so much of the country here. Again, places like Florida, obviously you've had enough rain. We had those tropical systems come through, Helene and then Milton really doing a number on the Sunshine State. So they're good. But even Georgia, where, you know, they had to deal with Helene as well, it's been dry enough that they are starting to see abnormal dry conditions. So that's a look at what's happening across the country with the drought monitor. Now we're going to take a look at our local situation and that crazy streak of dry weather I've been talking about at Norfolk International. Yesterday marked the 29th day in a row that we've had less than 1/100th of an inch of precipitation. So we've been dry. There may have been one day where there was like a little trace, but it wasn't measurable. So we've gone 29 days without rain at Norfolk International. That ties 1964, where we also had a 29-day stretch, for the third driest on record. If we make it through today, and there's some question, there could be a sprinkle or two, a cold front's coming through, but if we stay dry today at the airport, we will tie 1986 with a 30-day stretch. Here's the thing. If we don't get any rain today, tomorrow, looking ahead to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, that's 5 more days. That would pass that 30-day or 33-day stretch, the record amount that we've gone without precip that was set in 2000. So basically, we get a few showers that maybe add up to just a little bit at the airport later today or tonight, or we probably set the record for the longest stretch of dry weather. Pretty crazy to think about that. And again, we'll break down our chances here. Take a look at the graphic. You can see after today, we're dry Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Just about a 30% chance some isolated wet weather as we get into Thursday and Friday. So that's a look at our rain chances. And again, that's specific to Norfolk, but I did want to share that with you. Let's talk Election Day weather. I know this is a big deal for a lot of folks. So much passion around the election coming up, an important presidential election. We need everybody to get out and vote and support your candidate and candidates for the other positions that are up as well. So who may deal with some rain and maybe some wind? Well, a storm system is going to pull through the central U.S., so more wet weather there, a little unsettled. And you think about some of the battleground states, some of those key states that may be up for grabs. Of course, Georgia was one that's been kind of going back and forth a little bit in the presidential race. That's a key battleground. Pennsylvania, Ohio, North Carolina, back out into Nevada, Arizona, just some of the states that have been identified. And you can see rain will be impacting the central U.S. For the East Coast, the weather for Election Day looks really good. Skies are going to be partly cloudy. For the most part, temperatures really mild. There might be a few sprinkles again along the Carolina coast down to the south. For Atlanta, 79 degrees, partly cloudy, some wet weather maybe over eastern portions of Georgia, back up into South Carolina and maybe western parts of North Carolina. Then we have this storm system in the central U.S., wet around New Orleans, wet in Houston, Little Rock, St. Louis, and Chicago, and maybe some wind up across the upper Midwest as well. Minneapolis probably on the backside of that system with improvements coming. You can see Omaha, Oklahoma City, Dallas looking better. Out west, there's some unsettled weather up around parts of Idaho and Montana. Billings is going to be windy. Salt Lake City, a chance for a few showers there. Denver looks good. Phoenix, Vegas, California in good shape. I think Seattle probably okay, but there could be some unsettled weather there across parts of Washington and Oregon. So that's a look ahead to our Election Day weather. All right, we're going to talk about the tropical activity now. This is a big deal for folks that are just worn out by this hurricane season. You know, we've had some pretty bad hits. I talked about Helene and Milton slamming into Florida, and of course, Helene doing all of that flooding back across parts of the Carolinas, especially you think about Asheville. It's just incredible, those images that came out of that part of the country. As we take a look at the season, it is winding down. We're into the last month, so activity should be decreasing. Here's the deal, though. We're not done yet. In fact, as we take a look at the hurricane names, last name used, Oscar, the next name up, Patty, and there's a good chance that we're going to see Patty developing. I want to go back to the maps full. We'll take a look at that, and we're going to talk about what's going on here with the tropics. First of all, you see a swirl over the north central part of the country, and again, over the ocean, the north central part of the Atlantic, up in this area here. That is a non-tropical area of low pressure, but it is producing storm force winds. So that's one area that the Hurricane Center is monitoring. As we zoom in, the Gulf of Mexico right now is dry, so we're not looking at too much trouble right there right now. Things may change. Okay, we're going to talk about that and the threat over the coming week. As we turn our attention down into the Gulf, or down into the Caribbean, over the western part of the Caribbean, this is an area where we are seeing some scattered showers and storms, kind of a broad area of low pressure that may develop down in this area. Right now, again, nothing too ominous, but it is something we're watching. And there's another area that you can see if you've got a keen eye looking here up around Puerto Rico and over towards the Dominican. So these are the areas that we are monitoring. As we take a look at the water temperatures, you're talking about temperatures right now, sea surface temperatures that are measured between 80 and 85 degrees in many locations. So there's a lot of fuel for tropical development. This is a concern down in the Caribbean, and this is the area the Hurricane Center is most concerned with and most likely to see the development of our next system. Now you can see as we take a look at the tropics here how we have this one area in the southern part of the Caribbean with this now a 70% chance for development. I want to come back out on camera and talk to you about this here as we take a look. This area earlier was identified with maybe a 30% chance, and then I think a couple days ago we were around 40%, then up to 50% this morning. It kept going up. It was then at 60%, still a moderate chance. Well, coming in mid-morning, right before we started this live stream, the Hurricane Center decided, you know, this thing has a 70% chance. And I will tell you, the global models, taking a look at the American model, the GFS, and the Euro, they both bring this disturbance, what will be a broad area of circulation, a broad area of low pressure, kind of tightening it up as it moves closer to Jamaica, maybe over towards Cuba, and then they bring it to the west. So I'm going to talk more about that. I'm going to show you our GFS, or the American model, coming up in just a moment. Chances for development over the next couple of days, about 30%, but into early next week, pretty good chance that we're going to see this thing tightening up. So I'll show you that model in a moment. You'll notice this area here near Puerto Rico and heading towards the Dominican, only a 10% chance. What's likely going to happen with this is it's going to kind of do whatever, kind of hang out in this area, be a rainmaker for Hispaniola. So, you know, the Dominican and Haiti likely to see some heavier rain potentially with that, already seeing some just north of Puerto Rico there. So that's going to be a rainmaker, but it's probably going to be absorbed with this larger system, maybe draws some of that energy into it as that develops and potentially heads westward. Still some question as to how things play out, but again, I'll show you that model. We're not worried about that other one in the north central Atlantic, just a 10% chance. It's non-tropical right now anyway. So let's get into our future cast. And again, this is the GFS model, the American model. See a broad area of low pressure, and as we go through Saturday afternoon, seeing maybe a little bit of deepening of that low or tightening up as we head through early Sunday morning, still kind of tracking through the central Caribbean. You remember those water temperatures I just showed you in the lower to mid 80s. So there's a lot of energy, a lot of heat and moist air for this to work with as it moves over that warm sea surface. As it moves northward, again, this is where it starts to spiral up into early Monday. Now, could it be a depression or even a tropical storm? It could be. If it does become that, it will take on the name Patty eventually. But we're going to watch this. From there, you'll notice the GFS kind of brings it north, strengthens it a bit more. Once it starts to interact with Cuba, keep in mind Cuba, very mountainous in here, and that disrupts a lot of these things and as it interacts with land. But you'll notice it kind of comes up here, strengthens a little bit. Could be, if the GFS is right, it likely would become a tropical cyclone before starting to interact with Cuba. Now, there's high pressure, and you can just see the winds here coming around the base of that high pressure that is off to the north. So that's going to take this thing as it develops, especially if it strengthens and gets up a little bit higher into the atmosphere. It's going to start moving it to the west, and that's what it is forecast to do, to track west, kind of straddling the Cuban coast. So a lot of rain, real significant threat of flooding there for Cuba if this model is correct. And things can change. So it's not an absolute guarantee, but this is the very latest that the American model is producing. And the European is pretty close in the thinking in that it brings it up into this area and then starts to move it westward. This is through Wednesday around 11:40. After that, you see it moves into the Gulf of Mexico. Here's the Florida Keys, and you have this thing moving in to the Gulf of Mexico, potentially a tropical cyclone there, depending on how much it gets broken up moving along with Cuba. If I live down along the Gulf Coast, I really want to pay close attention to this. We're going to be watching it here at 13 News Now, and I'll be updating you on this as we head into next week as well. We don't need another tropical system impacting Florida. They've had more than enough already, and anywhere along the Gulf Coast, nobody wants to deal with this at this point. What the model does with this system after this time period, and again, I'll stress, it's one model, but both the Euro and the GFS kind of bring it to here. What the GFS does kind of brings it into the central Gulf of Mexico, towards the end of next week, and then it kind of brings it back over towards Florida. Now, right now, the GFS is kind of bringing it back over towards the Big Bend area. But there's another factor coming in here with this model. There's another storm system that is forecast to come through and kind of shear this thing apart and weaken it. So if, and it's a big if the GFS is correct, it would kind of come in here and then kind of get caught up with the winds and brought back over, but as a much weaker system. Way too early to worry too much about it, but certainly something that folks along the Gulf Coast will want to pay attention to over the coming days. And we'll keep you, of course, updated with that. Another little area out here, you can see some intense rainfall. That might be something interesting to watch. But this is the one that really has the Hurricane Center most concerned and watching that very, very closely. We'll keep you updated. Again, one model, things change from run to run, but that's how it looks as of this Friday morning, November 1st. I just wanted to share that with you. All right, we've got a cold front coming through. I mentioned this stretch of dry weather we've had. This is part of the same system that produced the severe weather in the central U.S. A lot of that energy went to the north, but the front kind of dragging through, still producing some showers. But as this crosses the mountains, a lot of the moisture is getting kind of wrung out over the mountains. It's going to cross and come through our area later tonight. It's going to bring about a wind shift, and much cooler air is coming in behind the system. So you can see those temperatures significantly colder now than they were 24 hours ago. Chicago down 21 degrees. It's 18 degrees cooler in Louisville and 23 degrees cooler as we sit this morning, mid-morning. I'm live streaming this. Started just after 10:30. We're coming up on 11 o'clock Eastern. So from this time yesterday, much cooler weather behind that front. Let's take this map full, and we're going to talk some more about the changes coming up again. As that moves to the east, we are going to see much cooler weather coming in across the region. Right now, what we're seeing, a lot of sunshine. And we're going to dive in to our rain chances here. It's beautiful, but clouds are going to increase. And I want to show you the futurecast. We're going to show you two of these. I mentioned the stretch of wet weather, or of dry weather, and how we've been waiting for any signs of precipitation. Here's our best chance with this front coming in, and you don't really see anything depicted here. I mean, nothing substantial. So still looking at dry conditions, maybe a very low risk of a stray sprinkle, a wind shift there. That's one of the models. That's the graph model. Doesn't really do much. Let me show you another model. This is the HRRR, or the High Resolution Rapid Refresh model. And this one, again, tries to produce maybe a few sprinkles, not so much Friday, but once that front comes around, produces a few instability showers into early Saturday morning. Very isolated. If we would get a little bit of precipitation late Friday night, early Saturday morning, that would be our shot at breaking this stretch of dry weather that has been going since October 2nd. If we don't get it here, and you see just that chance, and that's, again, just one model trying to maybe produce a sprinkler or two early Saturday or late Friday night. If it doesn't happen then, most of Saturday is going to become mostly sunny, or look for the clearing later in the day, and then much cooler with temperatures in the 60s. So that's what's at stake here. Maybe a few sprinkles, but not very likely based on what most of the guidance is suggesting, just a slight chance, and then more dry weather comes in. Now, one thing about the dry weather that's kind of cool, and some of you may be wondering about this zombie star thing. I was talking about that at the beginning of this. We're going to see mainly clear skies Sunday night into Monday night and Tuesday night. There's something coming up. It only happens about once every 80 years. Last time it happened, 1946 to be specific. But NASA believes that there could be the kind of rebirth or resurrection, call it what you want, of a star that kind of dies out, at least to the naked eye, and then it comes back to life every so often. I caught up with an expert from NASA yesterday, and I wanted to share this interview I did with them talking about the zombie star. Stay tuned. Well, it's Halloween, and this is a perfect time to discuss something really cool that's happening in our sky someday very soon. And I have an expert here from NASA, Dr. Bill Cook. Bill, you're going to talk to me about like a zombie star or something crazy that happens, maybe a resurrecting star. Let's talk about this.
Okay, well, sometime soon, a binary star system called T Corona Borealis will go nova. And this system has two stars in it, a red giant and a white dwarf. And both of these stars are nearing the end of their lives.
Really interesting. With those stars, the difference between a white dwarf and a red giant, for those of you that don't know, there are some big differences between those two stars.
Yes, the red giant is kind of a star much bigger than the sun. And of course, it has a red color. And the white dwarf is a star about the size of the Earth, so very much smaller than the sun.
How do they interact? What's going to happen?
Well, what's happening is they're close enough together that stuff from that red giant is, spiraling in and landing on the surface of that white dwarf. And when enough stuff gets accumulated on the surface of the white dwarf, you'll get a thermonuclear runaway, and that surface will literally explode, causing the brightness of the system to increase greatly. And a new star will appear in our sky when that happens.
That is amazing. Okay, so we're going to talk about this. This thing is not super close to us. I mean, I guess it's kind of in our stellar neighborhood here. But I mean, how far away is this event happening?
3,000 light years.
3,000 light years.
That means when that star goes nova, it took like 3,000 years to get here. So that if it goes nova now, that means that star went nova in 1000 BC, and the light is just now reaching us.
That is amazing. Now, it's just the surface that explodes, so this cycle actually repeats itself, right? That white dwarf is so dense it's going to draw more stuff over from the red giant. Is that right?
Right. This nova happens once every 80 years. It last happened in 1946. And after it explodes this time, it'll keep drawing stuff from that red giant. And in another 80 years, it'll happen again.
So wild. Now, you think back, okay, and when you think back to the last time this happened, roughly 80 years ago, we didn't have nearly the equipment that we have now to monitor this stuff. What's NASA doing to keep tabs on this? How is this event going to be watched and observed, and what can we learn from it?
Well, there are a lot of observers on the ground watching it using telescopes. I'm observing it just because I want to see it and see it when it blows its top. We'll have satellites in space. X-ray satellites and other instruments will be pointed that direction to keep an eye on it. And you're right, we will learn a lot more about this nova than we did back in 1946. It will really help us understand how these systems evolve.
Now, one of the questions that came to my mind as I was doing a little bit of research on this is, how long will this nova be visible? I mean, is this something that you're trying to catch the flash? Is it a slower development? I once saw a star flash in the sky and go, all right? Just happened to be a weird timing thing. But how do you know when something like this is going to happen, and how long of an event will this be?
Well, the honest truth is it happens roughly once every 80 years, but we can't time this precisely. So we're kind of waiting. And when it does go, it'll be visible for about a week. And that's the most important thing. If you want to see an exploding star, you'll have about a week to see it with your eyes before it requires a telescope again. So you got to pay attention to the news and go outside and see it.
Yeah, so when it happens, we'll be able to share it with all of our viewers, and they'll know how to see it. Now, we take a look at this dual star system, and you've got the red giant, the white dwarf. You know, these, I guess, at some point were pretty comparable to our own sun in size. Is this something that eventually is going to happen with our sun? And about how far down the road does NASA think something like this? I know with the sun maybe becoming a red giant. How many years do we have here with our sun?
Well, the sun will eventually become red giant, but that's not for billions of years. So a pretty long way down the road. Of course, our star will never go nova because we're not part of a binary star system. So while the sun will go red giant, it won't go nova.
Okay, and while you're here, I mean, I love having this great information. Talk to me about the difference. You know, we hear about nova, but then there's also a supernova. What's the difference? What happens?
Well, in a nova, it requires a binary star system, and it doesn't destroy the stars. So, you know, this white dwarf, it'll blow off a part of its surface, but it'll be normal otherwise, and in 80 years it'll repeat. In a supernova, you have a massive star that just reaches the end of its life and it collapses upon itself. And when that happens, you get this enormous explosion that literally blows the star to bits. All that's left is a neutron star or a black hole. So in the case of a supernova, it literally destroys the star, and you have this neutron star or black hole remnant, whereas in a nova, things are kind of go back to normal after the nova explosion.
That's so wild. Now, with the nova exploding, what comes off that white dwarf? How far does that extend? Like, does that impact other planetary bodies or other items around it? Do they get eaten up by that explosion, or do we know if there's anything even that close to those things?
Well, I would not want to be on a planet in the T Corona Borealis system right now. I can tell you that. So, yes, when the white dwarf explodes and blows off, that matter goes out into space, and over time it will form a faint nebula around it. You've seen the pictures of nebulae on the internet and other places. So there will be a faint cloud of gas around it, and we will be able to measure how fast that gas is expanding over time. That'll be another thing we'll be looking for, how much material this thing kicks up.
This is so wild. So we have a white dwarf that's kind of vampiring or sucking away from a red giant, and we're seeing a star that's basically getting resurrected or becoming a zombie. However you want to term it, it all ties in beautifully with Halloween. And we thank you, Dr. Cook, for taking some time to explain all this. We'll look forward to updates, and we'll look forward to the big event.
Thank you for having me.
I love it. Love it. Really enjoyed that conversation. I thought it was so funny. He's like, I would not want to be in the planetary system with the T Corona Borealis. Yeah, I agree. Could you imagine? You've got this star in your system, and every 80 years, you're not exactly sure when it's going to explode and send out all of this energy that's going to consume a lot of the stuff around it. Pretty crazy. And again, they can't time it out exactly because they don't know. Basically, what happens is it builds up, builds up, builds up. It's almost like playing that old game, Spill the Beans, where you just keep putting a bean on the tipper and you're not exactly sure when it's going to go, but you keep watching and then it goes. All right. As soon as it does go, we'll have a week to check it out. So you can bet, obviously, a lot of astronomers are going to be watching that, as well as NASA. And as soon as we get word that nova is going and that zombie star is reappearing in the sky, something that hasn't happened since 1946. You'll hear about it, so you can check it out with the naked eye before you'll need a telescope again to see it. All right, let's talk about the weather here. We've got clouds on the increase across Hampton Roads. Great priority automotive sky view here. Some cirrus clouds pushing in. There's more cloud cover out to the west as we go through the afternoon. Temperatures are going to climb to close to 80 degrees. So another very warm day with increasing clouds, low risk of an isolated shower. And the winds have been 10 to 15 miles per hour. We've seen some gusts up around 20, maybe 25 miles per hour in a few spots. Overnight tonight, isolated shower or two, can't rule it out. Not a guarantee, but can't rule it out. Mostly cloudy. Might see a stray shower or two late tonight or early tomorrow morning. Still a possibility. The big thing, today 80, tomorrow 64. So much cooler weather moving in. Decreasing clouds tomorrow. I'll remind everybody that we have to set those clocks back 1 hour. I know that all of our cell phones, a lot of our digital devices, they all do it automatically. But there's another thing you need to do, switch out those batteries and the smoke detectors. As you can see, moving forward in time, we've got another warm up coming for Hampton Roads. By Tuesday, Election Day in Norfolk, we're going to see temperatures close to 76 degrees. and it's going to be a little warmer on Wednesday. The next chances for showers coming up on Thursday. So again, remember, we get an extra hour of sleep. Make sure you change the batteries in the smoke detectors and CO detectors, whether you think we need to or not. Now's the time to do it. You want to stay safe out there. And if you want to follow this guy, me, you can do that on Facebook, Instagram, and X. We do keep you updated on a lot of the weather stuff going on. And again, we appreciate you so much spending some time. This has been More with Moeller on the 13 News Now Plus. Always free, always live, local, and always available. Fire TV, Apple TV Plus, and Roku, along with our other digital platforms. Be sure and check back with us. We'll try to do these every Monday through Friday around 10:30 a.m. We'll get it going. And again, you can check them back at your leisure on these devices. Have a great weekend.